So welcome to the Small Town Times Federal Election Podcast Series. Today's guest is John Janssen of the PPC Party, People's Party of Canada. And thank you very much for joining me here at Lou Dogs. Watch for more news coming out for a comedy contest that's going to be held this summer.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for having me on here.
Yeah. I want to know a little bit more about you and why you decided to run in this particular federal election.
Well, I think Canada is very much at a crossroads, and there's that thing, if people don't step up and step up for their values and their beliefs, then you can't complain. Okay, so I chose to run in this election. Really, the People's Party is the only alternative in my mind. Both the Conservatives and the Liberals, and as the National Post said the other day, there's no difference between them two. They're having difficulty to differentiating themselves. So I see that as a problem when our two main parties both have more or less the same platform, and it's a platform I don't agree with. So the People's Party has got a platform I agree with. I've been involved with the People's Party since it first started, back a couple elections ago. So just this time it was we're looking for a candidate, and I says, okay, I'll step up and do it.
What is it about their platform that aligns with your values?
A lot of it is very much, it's common sense, okay? Let's get the economy going, okay? Immigration is a big one that's happening right now, okay? I have two children, and I look at their jobs, their ability to get a job right now. They're a little bit young to be working out yet, but with all the immigrants coming in and taking all the lower paying jobs, those are the jobs that our children were usually taking. They're started off jobs while they're going to school, working themselves through college, and those jobs are no longer available. So that's concerning. Also, just the economy in Canada overall. I don't know if you've noticed house prices, but I'm not sure how a young family is going to go and buy a house and have children. And I'm old-fashioned. I like the concept of mothers staying at home and taking care of the children. I think it's one of the most important jobs they can do. And that's impossible. That Canadian dream is really gone. And I think that we should get that back again.
And through what mechanisms do you think your party would be able to get that back again?
Well, if we win and have a majority government, there's quite a few things we can do, okay? We're one of the most overtaxed people in the world, okay? And we're living in one of the most resource-rich countries. If you do the math, we actually shouldn't really even be paying taxes. We should be a very wealthy country, and we're exact opposite. If you look at your paycheck and see how much goes to the government, and then you go out and start shopping and see how much more of that goes to the government, and then you look at, okay, what am I getting for this? Well, I'm not getting nice roads, okay? I live in Chisholm, so that's, there's not nice roads there. We're not getting good health care, okay? These are all things that the government has promised us, and that's why they take our tax money. And what we see is a lot of money flowing outside of the country instead of staying inside the country, like in Ukraine, for instance. Mm-hmm. And I look at the fentanyl crisis we have right now, and the amount of homeless people living on the streets, and that's not the Canada I grew up in, and that's not the Canada I want my kids to grow up in.
Yeah, a lot of problems, not a lot of solutions. Without the taxation, what money would you have for roads and those other things that you're talking about?
Well, actually, Trump seems to have an answer to that. He's trying it out. We'll see what happens there.
How do you think it's going for him? It doesn't look like it's going good.
It seems to be going pretty good for him, I think. There's going to be a rough patch over there for sure. But think about this here. Before World War I, we had hospitals, roads, infrastructure, everything, and no income tax. Okay, so income tax came in as a temporary measure to pay up as part of the War Measures Act. And then they realized that this is a lot of money, and we're all kind of cash cows for them. Previous to that, countries made their money, to pay for everything via tariffs. That was the way the economy worked back then. After World War I, that switched.
Before the Great Depression.
Exactly. But then it switched. Okay, so now we have income tax, which, and I'm not saying that there's any easy answers. Okay.
No, it's all tough stuff, and,
You know,
I'm just sort of
Yeah.
being devil's advocate
Yep.
here, trying to draw it out of you. So
Yeah, there isn't really any easy answers. Okay, but I think we need to start really looking at Canadians and the economy here and focus on that. Okay, and focus on a Canada that we want our children to grow up in. Okay, and the Canada we have right now, I'm not too impressed with. Okay.
The families aren't. You're an anomaly. You have 2 kids, right? It's like it's above average now. Almost, we're below 2 in replacement. So I know that we got ourselves into this overpopulation with immigrants because we're trying to fill a void because there weren't some workers. We're missing kids. Our demographics are aging out, right? And whether that's because of just the way our society went, right? The richer you get, the fewer kids you have, right? Canada has actually done a lot better in a lot of countries, right? I don't know. I hear a lot of the doom and gloom, and I'm struggling through it too. I know what the economy's like. I deal with businesses that are just getting by, but I don't know. It's not so bad.
No.
Right? Like it's not. So I'm worried about tinkering and making big changes like they're doing in the States right now, trying to fix something that wasn't necessarily broken. I thought it could have been tweaked. I don't think we have a progressive enough tax system where people over making more than $10 million are figuring out ways to get scot-free, right?
So, like, say, Carney, who took his country.
Yeah,
remember, he's Canada first,
we
right?
Change those loopholes.
He took his country out of Canada, moved it to the States. All his money is sitting in offshore tax havens. And he doesn't seem to want to answer the fact is, does he even pay taxes in Canada? Okay, so, but he's going to be presumably, possibly the next leader of Canada and like walk the walk. Okay, and
I didn't catch the part where he said nobody knows whether he pays taxes here, but
that's I'm pretty sure. Okay,
I'll have to
don't quote me.
double-check
Don't.
that.
Yes, definitely. And you're free to tell me I was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, because I very well could be.
Look for it in the notes underneath. I'll check that. It could be a point, right?
Yep.
I don't see a flawless leader on the panel of choices for leaders for Canada either. So it's a tough one.
There's nobody flawless out there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We've all got our positives and minuses. There's no question about that. Okay, including Max, the leader of the PPC. Okay, I'm pretty sure he's not perfect. Okay, I think he's the best bet. Okay, for Canada, but that is up to the people when it comes down to it, right? But no, the
things that really bothered me about government over the decades is the poor investments and the bad decisions and the waste of the money and letting the corporations and rich people get away with these tax havens right through it. I think you could probably. I remember Paul Martin there. He had a company that was offshore as well, right? Yep. Stephen Harper. I'm not as clear where his stuff is, but I know he's very much all over the world as far as leading the conservative right type movement. Right?
Yeah.
Not 100% sure on that, but I know he caused some problems when he was prime minister, right? That led to over sort of corrections by the Liberals who made a lot of mistakes. They did things I didn't agree with. One of them was that they promised to have electoral reform, which would have had more of a proportional sort of representation there. Votes for the PPC would actually count.
Exactly.
Right? What do you think about electoral reform?
Oh, I think Canada needs it. This first past the post is crazy. So let's look at the votes from the last election. Okay, we got more than double the votes of the Green Party. Okay, across Canada. Okay, but so I can't remember how many votes that was. Okay, but there's no representation. Okay, so if you look at the votes, take the popular vote. Okay, Canada is actually a conservative country. The popular vote is conservative, okay? Conservative right to the right or whatever. But yet, because of this first past the post and big cities, okay, that vote is nullified. And I think that definitely, I'm not sure which would be, but some proportional should be, and that's going to come with its own problems, I'm sure, okay? If you look at some other countries in the world that have like 15 or 16 parties, you know, after an election, there's quite a bit of jostling as to sorting things out, but that's healthy. And it means that the people get more of a say, okay? Yeah, so I'm 100% for that, but, and I believe Trudeau ran on that this was going to happen. And then apparently he doesn't like math, he said, but I guess at some point someone pointed out the math that if we did that, there wouldn't be a constant string of Liberal majorities anymore. So apparently that fell off the table.
I'm quite clear on why they decided that it wasn't the idea, despite their promises, which you know, is a mark against them, I think. I wasn't 100% on the Conservative vote being the popular vote in Canada. I'll double check that as well. But that does bring up an interesting thing, strategic voting. And I know that the last election, the Conservative candidate would have had a little bit more chance of getting elected if it wasn't for a PPC candidate. Mark King, I think he was.
Yep. No, the last election was Greg Gallant. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Mark King was before that.
Okay.
It's actually quite it's actually interesting. I come up to that all the time about vote splitting and that we're stealing Conservative vote. But if you look at where our members are coming from, okay, now about 40 to 45% of our members, okay, are all ex-Liberals and Greens, okay. Conservative is actually a very small part of our membership. A large part, another 40, is people that have never voted before. The young people that have come up, and they've never voted Conservative, Liberal, or Green, and they have only ever voted for. And that's a very large demographic that we have there.
What's the big difference between the PPCs and the Conservatives?
Well, the Conservatives are quite liberal, really. Okay.
In what extent?
If you look at a lot of their policies, okay, they align very much with the Liberal policies when it comes to like the Paris Accord, climate change, you know, putting a price on carbon. Pierre likes to say that he's going to get rid of the carbon tax, and Carney went and put it down to zero, but it's still there. But unless they pull themselves out of the Paris Accord, the Paris Accord requires a tax on carbon. Okay.
So the Liberals removed the consumer part of the carbon tax, put it to zero.
Yeah.
They still have a carbon tax for industry.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens after the election as to what the consumer carbon tax is after that. But yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, I guess.
Well, I was telling somebody the other day that my tax bracket, I get more back in the carbon repayment than I was using. I don't heat with natural gas, so you don't get that big ding, right? Mm-hmm. So anyways, it's I didn't like the carbon tax because I don't like being forced into making decisions with financial punishment, basically. Mm-hmm. I don't like being coerced like that. Now, there's times when public decisions are made for the good of all. I lean towards the social contract as far as we're all in this together. But for example, I took the vaccine. Did you?
No.
And I thought it was a good idea to do what the best bet was going on, and it was mostly around the world in developed nations, right? I didn't like the fact that they protected the makers of the vaccine from any possible restitution if there was a problem with it. I was hopeful that the fund that they had for those that had adverse effects were going to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I knew we're getting into a little bit of a guinea pig thing happening, but I thought we're all in it together, and I had to do it. My son didn't want to take it, and so I told him I'll be the guinea pig and see how it goes. Everybody else in my family took it, right? So it's, and I've had, nobody I know had any lasting adverse effects.
Well, that's good.
I've had some COVID-related effects because you still get COVID despite the vaccine, and it didn't do
Kind of weird, eh?
what it was supposed to do. Well, it was supposed to protect me from hospitalization. That's what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Whether it did or not, I'm not sure. But I had 3 cases of COVID, and they were pretty hard on me, right? And
I'm sorry about that.
yeah, well, it's just the way it is. I know a lot of people have had it. Some fared better than others, but I don't know anybody that's died. I don't know anybody's had real full. And I know a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people, and whether or not there's a lingering something that will happen to me because of that COVID vaccine. I took the 2 and then 1 booster, and then that was about it for that.
Well, hopefully it doesn't. On the other hand, I never took the vax. I got COVID once, okay, and I was down for about 2 days and then back to work. Being self-employed, I can't call in sick. So, yeah.
Were you? I was functioning in a lot of crowds that I probably shouldn't have been, right? Because I was covering things.
Yeah.
So I think my exposure was a little bit higher to others, higher risk. Bad, but I know people that taken every one of the boosters, and they still are, with their flu and other vaccines. Perfectly healthy, never had COVID, right? So it's so much involved with that.
The biggest thing, the issue that I had with the vax, okay, is if you want to take the vax, go right ahead, okay. The issue I had is the body autonomy that forcing me to take the vax and then telling me that I can't do things because I didn't take a vax, which was untested, which has had problems, okay, and I had a lot of very hardcore issues with that concept, okay.
And I understand that. I understood my boy's position. But vaccinating only some and it doesn't make any use at all, right? So I could see why they want everybody to take it. How they tried to force people to take it, the punitive nature, people getting fired instead of just put on leave, right? For something like that, I think they should have been put on some type of benefit program where, okay, you're not in with all of us. We're all going to give this a go, and this is how we're. But you shouldn't lose your job over it.
Sure.
You should be put on standby. Like, well, let's see how this goes. They carried on the mandates longer than they needed to. I actually wrote that the truckers' convoy there delayed the lifting of the mandates because of the pride of the people that were instituted them, right? Because I know that they were heading towards lifting the mandates before that all came about. Because all the stats and everything was coming towards that. People were talking, okay, we're going to lift. And then all of a sudden, Ottawa and the border crossings, and it was like, well, we're not lifting them.
So you mean like after the 2 weeks to stop it? Remember, 2 weeks to stop the curve at the beginning?
Well, yeah, that's what everybody...
So after that 2 weeks?
No,
okay,
a year after that.
A year after that? Okay, when they still hadn't been lifted after that.
The month before the convoy,
they
were talking about lifting the mandates. And then they delayed lifting it because they didn't want to make like the convoy cause them to.
Yeah,
and I didn't agree with the protest in Ottawa going past 4 days. And I didn't agree with the border crossing closures. And I thought that was beyond. Like, and I'm a free speech guy, but I'm not a free camp out and ask the government to step down guy, right? I didn't think that was necessarily the way to go about it. First 4 days, live it up. Then now you're occupying, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm a law and order guy.
Well, absolutely, same here. Okay, so how do you? I have a question for you then. So
this is
right down in Toronto. Okay, we have pro-Hamas running around shouting "Death to Canada" and all kinds of wonderful things, and being quite violent, desecrating statues. Okay, all that, and that seems to be okay.
Not to me.
No? Okay. No, I was curious.
When you're calling for anybody's death, it's not
absolutely.
right. Like, protesting is one thing. Violent threats and death to anybody and trying to foment problems, not dispersing when it's time to disperse. I'm not for that.
No.
Yeah. There's a limit.
Oh, definitely,
right?
absolutely, yes.
But free speech is very important. But
the
that
right to
doesn't
protest
mean
is part of that too, right?
right to protest, but there's limits to what the protests. As soon as you start impacting other people beyond the pale, right? What that, what that is, like, I know that the Ottawa City cops were okay with it when they were told, yeah, they're going to leave after a certain length of time. Then all of a sudden now it's they're not leaving, and egg on everybody's faces. And then what do you do with it afterwards? So I know a lot of my buddies are they were there honking, and they thought
Did you go? Did you check it out?
No, I don't need to go there.
No, I'm just curious because then, so you're.
I had full coverage and on the mainstream media that does the job
Yeah.
that I need them to, is tell me what's going on. I was
Yeah,
okay with that.
I was there, okay, and actually I was there, and I saw CBC there,
Yeah.
okay, and it was rather interesting because they were focusing on one gentleman, I can't remember his name, that was coming up, and they suspected there's going to be problems, and they were putting out that this Freedom Convoy thing was so terrible. And I asked them to turn their camera on, but they wouldn't, because right behind them there was this nice big hill, and it was all families out playing and sledding at this terrible seditious event. Okay, and the mainstream media very much painted what was going on there, and that was not what I saw when I was there.
I know.
So
buddies of mine said the same thing.
Yeah.
As a journalist, you're there to cover the news portion, which is the hard-edged threat portion of it. Not everybody having a good time.
No,
They should include some of that. They should include some of
Definitely.
that.
So if you just take a small portion of, okay, this here bad thing happened, we're going to talk of this, and you're not going to take in the entire thing, then the journalist is not painting the correct picture of what's going on there. They are just taking one portion and magnifying that. Okay, there were so many people there. Okay, that yes, there's going to be problems. Okay, but by just magnifying some of it, okay, I think the mainstream media did very much a disservice to Canada during that. Okay, and we can of course agree to disagree. It's a beautiful thing about being in Canada, right?
That's what I love about it.
So, but no, what I saw there and what the mainstream was painting it as, okay, was incredible. And
well, I guess they were going off of what the apparent leaders of it were saying and threatening as their reason for doing it, right? So I was following the media before it started, and I was following the leaders that were calling for it, and he listened into what they're saying, and it didn't sit right with me.
No, there's definitely some wing nuts. Okay, when you have a large crowd of everyone, okay, then definitely. But when I was there was no violence. Okay,
the honking of the horns is a little bit much. I know guys that were there that are suffering hearing damage. Imagine living there, right? I know everybody says, oh, they live in Ottawa, they should expect it. Maybe for 4 days.
They might, okay, but also, if you look at that, how many people live right in front of the Parliament buildings?
Well,
It's
the
a commercial
people that
section.
had
It's a
businesses
commercial.
there was lots of people that
Yeah.
lived around that
Yeah.
area that were disturbed by what was going on. It just
No.
went on too long in my books, right?
And we can agree to disagree on that one, but
yeah.
but that is
That's cool.
that is a certain amount. That is old history, okay, and we can rehash that.
It's
For
I know
quite
it's
a-
old
quite a bit
history.
of
I don't
time.
think it's actually been processed well, because the memories don't fade. You're still a little bitter from it, I bet, because you have an opinion about the media not living up to what you thought they should have been doing, as far as their coverage goes.
So maybe there might be definitely some bitterness to the whole COVID mandate thing, since
Oh, yeah.
I was on the other
Yeah.
side of it. Okay, and yes, that was extremely low point in Canadian history, I believe. Okay, when the Mounties took their horses right through the crowd, trampled old ladies and walkers. Okay, when there was no violence from the protesters. Okay, and they walked in with riot shields and all that. To break it up, I'm sure you were thinking that should happen.
I think that at that point everybody knew that they either leave or face this, because it went on so long, right?
So what I'm curious about is, in all of that, where was our government? Okay, so in all of that, Trudeau never came out and even talked to anybody.
I wouldn't have talked to people threatening and telling me I have to step down either.
Well,
I would, but I wouldn't have done what he did before and tried to, embarrass people and use the language he did, which was used against him. I know what he was trying to say, but
those people, right?
he rubs me wrong even when he's trying to say something nice, right? I understand why people would be pissed with him because he just doesn't come across as genuine until he's really forced to, right? So I was very disappointed in him. I definitely, but we just had an election 4 or 5 months before that, right?
Yep.
I believe in democracy, no matter its faults. I don't like the first past the post, but we went through an election. We decided to give him more of, trust to do what needed to be done. But that wasn't good enough for a lot of people, right? You had your chance in the election before that. Well, how come that doesn't count? Calling for a guy to step down after just 5-6 months of after an election.
Well, when you have a prime minister that goes out and talks about those that were not willing to take the vax, and we're going to get some mandates, and he asks, "What do we do with these people?" These people are Canadians, okay?
And these people that didn't take the vax.
Yes, these people, yes, because that's what he...
Nobody likes being those people, but I get it.
Yeah, so these people, the ones that didn't take the vax, which myself and my family is one of them, okay? So we do believe in a free country, okay? And whether would definitely have different views on
how would you have handled it, say for, just for fantasy sakes, the vaccine was actually going to work, and 95% of the people took it, right? What do you do with the 5% that didn't? If you're thinking that their exposure will create enough sickness to fill up the hospitals, right?
Well,
that was part of it. It was like we were trying to avoid the healthcare system collapsing because it wasn't properly funded, right? And because we didn't have the senior citizens home and the privateers didn't protect those seniors, right? We were filling up the hospitals at one point. We didn't have the system to handle it. So that was the whole idea. Keep as many as you can out of the hospital. What do you do? Allow the people that don't take the vaccine to circulate when you think it might cause problems with your hospital system?
Well, I guess you got to step back a little bit, first of all, and ask the question, of was COVID that bad as a disease? So,
at first it was pretty bad.
I find it really interesting that if you look at the stats, one of the greatest things that happened during COVID, is that we beat the flu. That was fantastic.
Yeah, because people were in masks and they weren't sneezing all over.
So we beat the flu, but
the flu didn't circulate. People were isolated. You got to count all those factors.
So and but if you look at the numbers of what the flu was at, that's about the same as what we had for COVID. So that was kind of interesting. So we obviously quite differ on this here.
Yeah.
And we can rehash that all day long if you'd like.
Well, that's the main point, though. You don't believe it was a real disease that was threatening people's lives.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
I think there's certain variants in the start of it actually did kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? And mostly the old and the immunosuppressed and people that just, for whatever other reason, couldn't take those first couple strains. Certainly, there is some. I have some issues with the corruption of how they didn't test it properly and didn't follow it up and give us the data, so we don't have to argue or debate this issue, which should be scientifically studied to the point where we should know for sure what it was, what it wasn't, and the impact, so we know going forward, right? Certainly put a big dent and black eye into the systems that we trusted, right? There's some issues there. But I don't I saw a lot of what was happening at the beginning. It was a potential of a lot worse. And some of the very bright people agreed, right? Now, a lot of them have, since, you got more information, you can say, okay, the isolating people cause them to be more sick than what turned out to be. That's not a good way to go about things, because people get sicker when they're not outside and not, right?
Well, I think it's fantastic that they stop people from walking around in parks and going out camping. They close down
Closing
Crown Land,
toboggan hills,
and because people, that's just terrible. I live out in the country. Okay, so I have 100 acres. All right, so my kids were outside and playing. But I really feel for those families that are living in an apartment with 3 kids or 2 kids or whatever, and they can't go outside and they can't do anything. And I'm curious, and then they also with the schooling.
I was publishing a magazine going around, and a lot of my subscribers and supporters are of the older demographic.
Well, it's the Nostalgia magazine, which is actually it's quite good. It's fantastic. I love it.
So I was seeing the harm to the people that were shut in. Right, and I was sometimes the only person that would come visit.
Yeah, well, we weren't allowed to
deliver magazines. Well, I would knock on the door, step back 10, 12 feet. I'd wait for them to come to the door. We talked through the door or distance, and it was people were scared and didn't know how to handle it. I think we learned a lot. I think we learned a little bit. But I'm afraid if we ever have a real pandemic again, because no one's going to believe anybody, right?
Oh,
no one's going to trust, right? The erosion of trust, it was definitely something that we're going to have to deal with going forward. I think
Be interesting to see how they work at rebuilding that level.
You
of
remember
trust,
how
right?
Trump was the one rushing the
Warp speed, yep.
Yeah, rushing it, so he wanted the vaccine before the election, so he wouldn't be blamed for deaths and destruction.
Yep.
And their mandates were part of the problem for both the truckers, right? The truckers had to take the vaccine so they can get into the States and back, right? It wasn't necessarily a situation in Canada. Truckers Association said 9% of its members were vaccinated, right?
Yep.
And not a lot of issues. So yeah, there's so much. I did write a column though that said we shouldn't vilify the people that don't take the vaccine.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It was in Beta Day. It's part of my series I did with them, and I didn't, because we are all in it together. We shouldn't be fighting against each other. Something has to be done when there's a virulent sickness that's going around to make some rules, but I think we went overboard, and they erred on the side of their own caution, closing things down for no good reason, and I don't think we'll ever let them do that again. But
we'll see. We'll see what happens, because I'm not convinced that they won't do it again.
Yeah.
No.
Well, if Bill Gates gets his way, everybody would be vaccinated
by mosquitoes.
Yeah.
By mosquitoes.
Yeah. It's
which for me, who doesn't want to get vaccinated, okay, and live in the mosquito belt, okay, that's.
Have you ever been tested for West Nile?
For West Nile, no.
I'm pretty sure it's come through this area and people have gotten it. But
I know. Well, I know the Lyme disease. Okay, I know a couple people with Lyme disease from ticks. Okay, that they got it here, and it's interesting. I've never seen out in Chisholm on the one beach there's ticks, on the other beach there isn't. It's weird, but I've never actually had a tick, so I want to kind of keep it that way, because they're disgusting little things.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Having a big blood-sucking parasite on me. I
kind of live in the bush myself there on the highway in Corbeil, right?
Yep.
And I cut a lot of wood. I've got 3 acres. I'm surrounded by hundreds, right? Keep an eye on for ticks.
Yeah.
Right. I wear long pants cutting the grass. That's that's something I don't want to mess with, because damn, if I end up becoming allergic to meat there, I don't know what I'm going to eat.
Oof.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Me too.
I need my meat, without a doubt. Vegetables are a nice side, but let's stick with the main course here, right? For sure.
Okay, so back to the election and current situations. What's your policy on Indigenous people and how we work with them?